He does have a unique background in that he worked for Microsoft, but he also has a background that's kind of common to most of us here, and that he loves liberal arts. He's got a couple of degrees, maybe he'll talk about that he thinks has prepared him for his life journey. And that's what we want to talk about today. This is just going to be a conversation. There'll be times for you to ask questions, maybe chip in if you would like for the next hour. And I had asked some of my colleagues if they would participate, and not only are they good professors, but they also represent various disciplines in the liberal arts, and I thought it would be great to have them be able to share some of their thoughts. So we've had 4 questions that we've been pondering on for weeks and years, or the last 24 hours, whichever comes first. And so we're going to just kind of have an open conversation. Each one of us will have a time to chat about that. Maybe that'll cause you to have some thoughts about some specific things in your own view of the liberal arts. We're going to reflect, and we will tell you from question to question what the question is first. Each one of us will have a chance to comment about that. And if you have questions during that process of any of us, and finally, we want to make sure that Neil has most of the airtime, if you will. So again, let's welcome Neil. Then, if you don't know, we have Professor Lethrer with us, drama, right? Thank you, Professor. And what? Yeah. Professor Rink, art department, and our own Aristotle, Dr. Pat. So the first question that as a panel we'd like to address is, how do you think an appreciation for the liberal arts has informed your professional life and your personal life? Neil, you want to give us some thoughts on that?
Sure. So I have 3 degrees: English literature, philosophy as an undergrad, and comparative professional theological studies. All of those areas have been critical to my experience in business, my experience as an entrepreneur. For philosophy, I'll just very briefly talk about why that's. I do deliver lectures about it. I'll give a 3-minute version. So philosophy teaches you how to think. Teaches you how to analyze arguments, how to distinguish good arguments from bad ones, how to make good arguments, how to back them up, how to engage a dialogue, how to go deeper, how to not stop at the surface and just keep scratching until you reach a point where either you feel that you can defend your position well to your satisfaction, or determine that you need to keep digging until you get to some level of comfort. That's the same kind of process that we use in business, right? We dig and dig and dig until we can back up our assumptions. At Microsoft, it was all about data analysis. And, we would prepare for months for a 5-minute meeting and have reams of documentation and spreadsheets and demographic analysis. So it's all about synthesizing data, analyzing arguments, and being able to deliver good ones. That is what philosophy taught me, and I think that's what philosophy can teach anyone. With English literature, obviously, comes the ability to express yourself well, to be expansive when you need to be, and to write in a coherent way, to write in a compelling way. To draw people in, and also when circumstances require to be able to compress your thinking, as I said, in some cases down to 50 words and 3 slides, and capture the essence of the ideas that you're trying to convey enough to motivate people to ask more questions. So that's kind of what I got from English literature. My comparative religions degree is more about my relationship to the world, my relationship to the universe, my relationship to God, if you will. And so that's important also in giving you context about the things that you do in your professional life and your studies and why you do them. And also, it certainly helped me realize that my life doesn't begin and end with my work. You know, during many years at Microsoft, I was working 14, 16-hour days, 7 days a week for years, for several years. And in those years, if I didn't get up in the morning and take some time to meditate, some time to reflect, I would have been lost if I didn't have the ability to connect the work that I was doing to a larger arc in my life, a larger arc in the universe and in history in some ways. I would have lost the ability to go to work and to keep motivated, to realize why I was doing the things that I was doing. So those are instances for me of how the liberal arts really helped me and help me to this day. I mean, I was telling various classes I'm rereading Plato's Republic for I think the 10th time in my life, and I'm discovering things in it that I hadn't seen before, and that are relevant to this election, and that are relevant to how our government is constituted, and the Electoral College, and Thomas Jefferson, and there's all sorts of stuff in there. And so I keep learning and relearning those lessons that were initially taught me through my liberal arts studies.
Thank you, Anil. Jen, how about you?
Sure. I don't have those degrees. I have storytelling degrees. So when I think about it's right up the hills of what I was saying. When I think about the liberal arts and what it's taught me, what it has taught me, as opposed to another kind of something other than a liberal arts degree, what I would have been missing is that a liberal arts degree taught me how to understand people and how to understand the world around me. For my profession, that's absolutely essential. If you don't understand history, then as you're studying Street Creating Desire, as we're doing in acting class right now, you don't understand what's happening in the United States after World War II. And if you don't understand what's happening in the United States after World War II and at society levels and why it's important that his last name is Kowalski, then you really don't understand the thing. And if you don't understand science, then you're really not going to understand empirical point. Or if you don't understand the legal profession, you're not going to understand empirical point. Yeah, you're not going to understand those plays if you don't have a well-rounded knowledge. So it's really important for me professionally to know lots of things about lots of things. I'll also say this. When I was in college, I was in a philosophy class, and I was in a playwriting class, and I was in an advanced acting class. And what I realized one day, and this is kind of the watershed liberal arts moment for me, was that they were all about the same thing. So I'm taking this philosophy class, and we're studying Aristotle, we're studying Matt Hill, and we're studying Aristotle's notion that happiness is the only thing which, when we achieve it, we're not trying to achieve something else. Everybody wants to be happy. And I got to playwriting class, and my professor said, what is your story really about? Why are they trying to do this? Why is he trying to convince her to do this thing? It's because he thinks it'll make him happy. And I went, yeah, just like Aristotle said. And then I got to acting class, and it was the same thing. Okay, here's what it says on the page. Why do you think a person would want to do that? Why is your character, what is really compelling them? And I went, all of these are the same thing. They're about who people are and what they want. And wow, that's what the liberal arts is. It's who people are and what they want. There's also a study, and I can't remember if it was by the Library of Congress. They were talking about readership and why reading is important in the United States. They were making the case for more reading programs and stronger reading skills for people. And they used a notion. They commented. They quoted C.S. Lewis and how reading makes you a better citizen. So with the upcoming election, or if I'm to understand what's happening in the world around me, I have to have some understanding of the way that science works. Because if I don't, I can read something about climate change, or I can read something about why bees are dying off, and I really don't understand it, and I say, oh yeah, I must believe that person because they must be right, and I can't really assess the information I'm given. With a liberal arts degree, I can. I can say, well, my understanding of the way that the world works, based on what I learned in a science class and what I can read, means that I see where this perspective is coming from. And it makes me engage in it better. So they're going, I don't know, they're scientists, I don't know what they're talking about. And I'm not a scientist. My brother is a scientist, but he's also an artist. And in doing those two things together, he brings creative thinking to his science so that he doesn't just follow standard forms. He goes, okay, well, I'm really interested in this, but I wonder if there's another way to think about that. And he also brings his scientific knowledge of things into his understanding of art. And that helps him to see things from a better perspective. It helps him to engage in the world more because he's not afraid to engage in the world. He has some understanding of it. Like, I don't know about that, so I'm afraid to engage in it. But also because I know something about it and I'm willing to engage in it, I'm a better citizen. I can love people better. I can make the world around me a better place because I have a base knowledge of how to engage in it. I have a better perspective.
Thanks. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Matt, how about you?
I think, and Anil stole half of my stuff. I would just echo what both Jen and Anil are saying, that like, for me, the personal side of it was when I was going through my undergrad was in at a liberal arts college, much like this, and I started to realize that these, you have this kind of moment where you're like, oh, why do they make us take all these different classes, And I remember realizing at some point, this kind of hit me in the face, thinking like, oh, these aren't just random classes so everybody gets a stake, in the curriculum. These are classes on purpose because they want you to be a certain kind of person coming out of the school. And so that to me was super important. And it's exactly what Neil and Jen, were saying, that like, these are connected, but also they make you a critical thinker, and they make you a certain kind of person. So that when you approach various topics like science or sociology or sociobiology or comparative religions, you see it from a lens of critical rationalism that is open to mystery. And those are paradoxes that I think are really unique to the liberal arts, that allow somebody to study comparative religions and see the commonality and the differences, but not just kind of banal commonality and differences, really unique ones, and to reread the Republic and read different things into it every time you do it. Rather than, so you're not reading and learning for information, you're reading and learning for formation. And I think that was a shift for me in how it became personal to me.
I'm assuming you were going to pass the mic to me.
I
did want to
And let's move on.
Yeah, and thank you, Jonathan.
So my interest in the liberal arts, I think it originally began when my parents showed me the series by Francis Schaeffer, How Should Men Live, which I begrudgingly watched. I think I was about 14 or 15 at the time, and it was very hard to get into this amazing series, but I couldn't get past Francis Schaeffer himself. And if you haven't seen him, you don't know how to describe him, Mr. Tumnus, perhaps, knickers, kind of explaining Western civilization. But it was really when he started talking about the 20th century that it really clicked, and I was fascinated that philosophy so beautifully became tangible through the arts. And just to make a quick example, and this is a generalization, but for example, the Renaissance, we see humanity depicted in all of its glory, in all of its beauty. But as the value of the human individual deteriorates throughout the 20th century, we see humans increasingly depicted in very fragmented forms. And I just thought that was really interesting, that ideas could actually manifest themselves through the visual arts. So I pursued a degree in interdisciplinary humanities and then eventually art history. And I do still get strange looks when I tell people that I actually got a degree in art history, but I have no regrets actually, and I'm still finding that the arts, the visual is just so beautifully spread across other disciplines. And to just kind of give an example of that, some of you have heard my stump speech before on John Ruskin, but Ruskin, this kind of cantankerous Victorian buzzard of a scholar, goes into Italy and admires the beautiful handcrafted Gothic architecture, and lovingly draws it, sketches it, and comes back to England, and then is suddenly aware of how mass-produced everything is in England, and how boring and ugly, and there's no organic buildings everywhere, everything's metal, and it's produced by low-paid workers in factories. And he used architecture and the arts as kind of a springboard to initiate a discussion into why is contemporary Victorian England the way it is. Can't we do things better? Perhaps they were doing things better in Gothic Italy than we are now. He actually launches this movement, the arts and crafts movement, to kind of solve some of the Victorian social ills. And in the end, it was ultimately unsuccessful. He wanted to change the entirety of British society. He did change little pockets of British society. So I kind of use him as my starting point. So in my own work, I do a lot of writing, blogging actually for Sculpture magazine, and I try to write about artists that are using their art to do something very tangible in the contemporary world. So just one quick example would be the artist Tyree Guyton, a Detroit artist who took a street in Detroit, a very blighted neighborhood, and started painting polka dots on all the houses. And this used to be a street that was frequented by drug dealers. These were all crack houses. And as he started turning this street into a work of art, suddenly tourists started flocking. It got to the point where 200,000 visitors were coming to the street every day just to see this bizarre work of public street art. And the crack dealers had to stop using that street because there's just too many people coming. And now it's this kind of celebrated, iconic example of how art can actually change society in a very real and tangible way. And I'm finding that so many artists are doing that, and I think contemporary art so wonderfully speaks to contemporary issues. And I guess my own work, I try to give voice to that and raise awareness to how contemporary art can speak across disciplines. It's not just framed paintings hanging sterile in museums. It's artists are actually out there trying to make a real, tangible difference.
Thanks, Jonathan. As I was listening to all of you, I mean, I had to reflect back on my start was probably at my mother's feet. And I don't know whether she incited curiosity in me or not. We had a set of, most of you will not know what this is, but World Book Encyclopedia on the shelf. And literally, I remember starting with the letter A, when I could start to read. When I started to read, and reading through the encyclopedia. Now, yeah, it's a little weird. It took me a while, but I developed a fascination for almost every topic. I said, I wondered, is it possible, that this could be a lifelong experience? I wasn't sure how all these things connected up. So through high school, I took as many variety courses as I could, and I ended up at a liberal arts school in Indiana. And my degree work has all been done in relatively small liberal arts institutions who also ended up having a specialty area because my background and profession has been in business for many years. But what fascinated me as I began to look back on this journey, I credit my mom with starting this interest in me, and then just something simple like a set of encyclopedias just opened up such a wonderment in all these areas that you could just be curious about, and you could feed that curiosity. And then finding out in college, you actually had professors and faculty that were passionate about their various areas, and you could draw from that and begin to build in your own appreciation for a much broader context. And I grew up in a little town of 600 people, all right? And so it would be really easy to be provincial, and I grew up on a farm, and I knew a lot about corn and beans. But as my parents traveled me, and then later on in my career, and I had this background, I could draw on that to make connections with other people wherever I went professionally, and to sit and talk to them about their areas of interest, not mine, but to ask questions, and when they begin to talk about it, to be able to encourage this discussion. And that helped to build relationships. And so I have to look at that probably the most, I've got lots of hours of study and reading in my applied discipline. But that is not where I find my enjoyment with other people and with other subject matter. I'm still reading in my house, and I'm sure that may happen to you and most of us in here. Every room we sit down in, right, there's a stack of books. And I think only one of those books is on economics. I mean, I've got theology books and philosophy books, but because somebody's got to hold Matt accountable. And, you know, on art books, and my wife and I enjoy watching movies and programs from different cultures. I mean, just as just our recreational time. So both my professional life and personal life have been most greatly influenced outside of the people who've been in my life from the richness of the liberal arts, being able to see how all these dots, as many of you have mentioned, are connected. That kind of opens up the discussion a little bit to a sense of community. Do you think that the liberal arts have helped you have a sense of a greater community and be a part of a community? Neil, would you like to speak to that? Get your hand on it, Jan.
So yes, absolutely. Everything I read, everything I study, in some way is really a celebration of community. And different kinds of communities, historical communities, school communities, community of students, and that takes different subgroups, right? There's one community is here, and you have a community in your classes, and as you get deeper and deeper in your studies, the community in some ways gets smaller and smaller, but more and more intense. You have very, very pronounced dialogues with your professors and a few other colleagues that whose opinions you value. And you have the community at church, and you have your community at the temple and in the mosque, and in my case, the Buddhist temple. And those are different types of communities. And what I've found is that I'm a reasonably introspective, self-reflective person, and I need to be alone. I need quiet, and I need time to think, and I need time to kind of ponder, but I equally need that community. And so for me, it's kind of a ping pong back and forth between one and the other. One feeds the other, and vice versa. It goes in both directions. And really, the liberal arts, anything I've read, becomes meaningful in how it connects to communities. And I'm talking about communities across time as well. Right? So I can read, I can read St. Augustine, who was one of my favorite theologians, and really kind of appreciate how this sinner, as he described himself, this drunkard, and this whoremonger, and all of the things that he was in his early life, wrote some monumental philosophical works, and really, because of his experience, was able to bring a lot of authenticity and honesty to his writing that's very compelling across time, and that brings me in community with him, brings me in community with the people who followed him, and who follow him still. And so it's community in lots of different directions, and across time as well. And so I think that's, and then of course, the most intimate community that we live in is our family. You could spend a lifetime studying psychology and other liberal art, and figuring out how the experiences of various people, various writers can inform, or can help you in your dealings with your immediate community. So I see community everywhere.
I see community everywhere too. If community is a shared sense of understanding or a shared sense of experience, if that's what community is, then I think that how the liberal arts has impacted my view of community is so deep and so profound, I don't know how to explain it. So we're going to move on to the next question, so I don't want to talk too much about it here, I guess, but about cross-cultural experiences. But for me, leaving the farm that I grew up on and going to a liberal arts college was a cross-cultural experience. And being the only person in my high school who knew who Gene Kelly was, to suddenly step into a room filled with people who I could make references about musical films to, and they all got them, was a shocking understanding of community to me. Here's what I know about theater folk. They love to hug, they love to stay up late, and they love that everybody belongs there. And that was really cool to me. And there was a shared sense of understanding the experience. However, we also all came from these different backgrounds. And so I also drive home at the end of my day after talking about the liberal arts and philosophy and comparative religion to talk with my family at home in a small town. And I am the only person in my church besides the pastor who, when the pastor's wife walks in a shirt that says Nietzsche is dead, God, I laugh. And I know that I'm one of the few people in my church who does that. But I understand my community. And I've had discussions with my pastor and his wife about how, preaching at a small church is a little different than a lot of the way that pastors are taught. Understanding that community and how to be a part of it, I need to have a broader knowledge and a broader experience. I am to talk with someone whose experience is different than mine and be able to converse with them and understand them. And because I teach acting, I also understand empathy. At least I better understand empathy really well. I better understand how to step into someone else's shoes. And I might not feel the same way, I may not think the same way, but I've got to when I am being that person on stage. And I have to understand them and have not just sympathy for them, but empathy for them. And in doing that, I return home, I return back to my other communities with more perspective, with more understanding, and more ability to see where they're coming from, to know why they talk the way they talk. And so the liberal arts, in a sense of community, makes me a better community member in every community that I'm in, and it also helped me find communities that I belonged to. You're just trying to confuse me.
Yeah, I know, yeah, you always hear.
You're sending a mixed signal.
Well, I just want to piggyback on what Anil said about communities across time. I think of C.S. Lewis, who coined the term chronological snobbery to address the mindset that just because something is more recent, it is by default better than what came in the past. And I keep name dropping John Ruskin, but I just love how he would look at something and think what they were doing 300, 400 years ago is just so much better than the way we're doing it now, and we can't be turned back the clock. I guess speaking very specifically to the visual arts, I think just the idea of going to an art museum and seeing what the visual culture was and what the material culture was hundreds of years ago is kind of a gentle way to push back against that chronological snobbery. This will kind of slip into the next question as well a little bit, but I suppose cultural snobbery as well. Arts, visual arts are certainly a great pushback against that. And just yesterday I had the opportunity to be at the Toledo Art Museum with a group of wonderful students. And there was a great exhibit on American Indian art, and it was actually fantastic. I'm not that familiar with the American Indian art, but it was really nice to be able to see the complexity and the intricacy of what Native American art really is, as opposed to the caricatured versions of the Native American that I grew up with, or the cheap dime-store trinkets that I would buy whenever we vacationed in the Upper Peninsula. So when just confronting the real thing, I think art and museums offer a platform for these global populations to kind of get their voices heard without the filter of caricature.
I would combine the question on community and cross-cultural. I think yesterday Neil was in our environmental ethics class, and I think that it was he displayed a perfect example of how the liberal arts can kind of connect, disparate groups of people who all grew up in different circumstances, and kind of be this common language to talk. I largely am, I'm American, in kind of every sense of the word. I've traveled outside the country just a little bit, but, most of my time is spent here. It's probably, and Neil grew up in Europe and is kind of traveled extensively across the world. And yet, when talking about environmental ethics and philosophy in our class yesterday, we're able to use the same exact language, and especially talking with students who are, in their early 20s and at very different places than we are, family-wise, and all sorts of the way that in different places. able to connect with students who are kind of hungry for those philosophical ideas as well. So I think the beauty of the liberal arts is that it is this bridge between culture and enables people to cross and kind of gather at a common space, regardless of kind of circumstance and time and location and life experience. That's a pretty unique. I mean, how many other things in this world can really do that? So I thought yesterday was just a fine example of that, for sure.
Thank you, Matt. For me, in part, I think the liberal arts help to reduce the fear of moving outside of my own community. Because what happens when we feel like our community is a secure place, and we tend, or I tend to maybe want to be off-putting about other communities. This is a safe place. What the liberal arts, I think, helped me to gain from reading history, from reading about other cultures, and then as I moved on into a career, I was prepared, I think, to be and to approach different communities with the spirit of humility as opposed to a spirit of hegemony. And it was in that I began to see the value of others, the value of different backgrounds and cultures, and appreciate much more widely. So the liberal arts definitely helped me gain a much bigger sense of community. And even in the last several years, I've come to respect more and more that each one of us, you see, is on a journey. And I think the liberal arts has helped me be able to articulate that better. And so when I look out at other communities, I realize that whether it's individuals or collectively in the community, we are on some sort of a, and I use this word very carefully, collective journey. Not a journey to collectives, but at any rate, I just want to make sure I got that well. And then as we humbly look at that, we can see the contribution others make, but we also see the chance to contribute with a servant's heart to others' journey. And I think the liberal arts have helped me with that. And in that sense, when I have traveled some different places, both internationally and believe it or not, you can find yourself in different cultures. Try going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama sometime and talking about football. But that's, they have a football team. Anybody familiar with that? Alabama football. We don't do football in Michigan, correct?
It's soccer.
What's called soccer here. So, but this idea of having respect and regard for others, and I think a lot of that comes because we've reduced our fear, and that we can have it feel so uncomfortable. So to me, that has been a real blessing in this journey that I've been on, and that liberal arts has helped prepare me for and provide a foundation for it. Our final comment, and I don't even know what time it is. Somebody can give me a sense of time. Is it 10:40? So we've got a few more minutes, right? And what about those of us, or maybe, I mean, most of you I know are okay, we're liberal arts people, but how might we encourage others, our friends, people that don't have a background in liberal arts, to sort of step out and explore new areas besides our own comfort zone? And maybe we can do that. How do we help others do that? For instance, I am very fearful of differential equations. Anybody else here? Oh. How can we help other people feel comfortable, let's put it another way, in an area that they're not comfortable? How can we help introduce them? Have you had some experiences in doing that, Anil?
Yeah, so first I want to echo what Matt was saying about the liberal arts. I'm translating, but it's a common language, right? It's a common language that you can use around the world, across culture and across disciplines. So, John Ruskin was mentioned. Well, I have a thought about John Ruskin since my philosophy of aesthetics class 3 years ago. But I loved what I read, and I thought he was a brilliantly accomplished writer and very compelling. And yes, he was a Victorian fuddy-duddy, but he was a fantastic writer and very incisive and perceptive. And that's just something that's stuck in my liberal arts background from decades ago. But I'm sure I could sit down and have an extensive conversation and talk about Ruskin. So I think the liberal arts gives me, and I think gives most of us will echo this comment, is just a hunger for knowledge, hunger for new experience and openness to exploring the ideas of others, the ideas of different philosophies, different religions, different disciplines than our own. And there are people who could make differential equations accessible to you. It's just how they talk about them. It's how they present the idea, and how it reflects a type of thinking that if you take it beyond the dry formula. I like differential equations. Reflects just a way of looking at things that if it was explained to you through a liberal arts process, you would go, oh, that makes sense. And you might eventually conclude, oh, differential equations are actually pretty cool. And maybe that would work for you.
The jury's out.
But so I think liberal arts, just to resume, is really a common language, but it also reflects an openness to ideas, and just a lot of knowledge. I describe myself as a generalist, but I'm fluid. I read every day, and if there's my kids laugh because it's the same thing as you picking up your encyclopedia, reading enthusiast. Like, so what's Dad going to talk about today? It's like, well, today, I want to talk about nuclear physics because, and I do a bunch of research and I read a bunch of articles, and so I'm a generalist. I don't pretend to have deep knowledge, but I'm a dangerous generalist. And that's, I think, one of the values of the liberal arts is that it allows you to be a dangerous generalist.
I completely agree. That's piquing people's interest, I think, is one of the things that you do. I think you pique their interest. I think you give them an imperative, and then you empower them. And I say that as a teacher. So my interest is also piqued by everything. So I didn't start at A, but the World Book encyclopedias were an accessible shelf. And someone would have a question, my mom would go, why didn't you look that up? Which was a brilliant thing to say, because then I would get, the C went down, and there were 2 volumes of C. And I would start at the beginning to get through to where it was, because I would be sidetracked by 15 things on the way, at least, as I was looking through the encyclopedia. And so my interest was piqued. And so math might make me break out in hives, but then when someone starts to talk about fractals, I get interested because they look cool. And that's interesting, and I want to learn more about it. Once I'm interested, I'm invested. I have to teach I have to teach 10 minutes of algebra when I teach stagecraft. Because I have to teach watts equals volts over amps. Because then, even though my drama students and the other students who take stagecraft, even though they go, Jen, that's algebra, and they have that frightened look on their face, like, I thought I was in a safe space, and now you're breaking out those numbers and letters, and it's really scary. And I say, but you need to understand this, so you understand why when half the lights in the prop shop go out, you should check the fuse box. You have to know that. Because you have to know that, and this is why. And if you can do the math, you can empower yourself to solve the problem. So I give them the imperative. This is why you need to know about that. This is why, even if I'm horrible at spreadsheets, but I need to know how to use them. I'm terrible at them. They don't make me break up hives, they make me shut off the computer and leave the room. Because it's not the way my brain works. But 1, somebody's got to be good at them. And 2, I'm going to have to if I'm going to speak the language of other people and I'm going to be successful in my work. I have to know how to do that. And then to encourage them. And so to let me pique your interest. Math isn't that scary, it can be kind of cool. 2, let me give you an imperative. This is why you have to know how to do this. And 3, to encourage them and say, you're more than capable. Your brain might not work this way, but if you're interested in this, learn more about it. Overcome the barriers to you learning about this. Overcome the potential barriers inside of yourself to you learning about that, and the potential barriers outside, because you'll be richer for it. You'll be empowered for it. You'll be a more active participant because of it. You'll be more invested in your community because of it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So one thing that I do in my art foundations classes, I'm fully aware that I'm speaking to a group of non-art majors, and I don't expect them to immediately go in really responding well to art. So I try to introduce them to just how the word is malleable art actually is. That it's not just old paintings hanging on museum walls. So I introduce examples mostly from the contemporary world, showing how, well, for example, I happened to read an article about how Golan Levin of Massachusetts Institute of Technology, he's got a PhD in engineering, is creating artwork that you can find at the Museum of Modern Art in New York using 3D printing, and it's really exquisitely beautiful stuff that is beyond my capability to even, I have no idea the engineering involved in making this stuff, but MIT is doing some really interesting stuff in the arts, but blurring art and science. Another good example also from MIT is Neri Oxman, who is creating 3D sculptures, but they're using multi-material 3D printing. So it's not just one fabric, it's two fabrics. And they actually have potential in physical therapy. You can 3D print custom designed wrist sleeves for people with carpal tunnel syndrome. But these are objects that you can actually find on display right now at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. So I think art is incredibly valuable, kind of crosses disciplines, maybe just such ease that I think for me it makes my job sort of easy actually to show how art crosses the disciplines so well. And I just encourage people to, if nothing else, walk into an art museum. If you find the stuff boring, then you're probably a boring person, I guess. It's down to.
Can I ask a question to Neil? Is that what broke?
Let me check the.
All right.
Yeah, there is an exception out of the contract. Sure.
So you talked about that hunger and that kind of desire for that stuff. So personally, I guess this would be a personal question. In that hunger and desire to be that general knowledge in the liberal arts, like, can you ever shut that off? And would you ever want to shut that off?
Yes and no. So yes, I'm hungry all the time. I don't think I can shut that off. I'm just, there's just so much to know. I'm going to run out of time before I get to study all the things that I want to study. I know that, and so I kind of try to prioritize. Having said that, yes, it is. I meditate every day, and the type of meditation that I practice is a very deliberate attempt to put my intellect into low gear and to perceive the world, for its beauty, for its inherent beauty, to be quiet, to be peaceful, to kind of perceive the world in other ways. We've been given these fantastic senses and these abilities to get a hold of an idea and kind of chew it over, sometimes for a lifetime. And I certainly do that, and I do that with great passion. But I also, I was looking at the Illuminated Bible the other day, and I was very moved by it. And I was very moved by it more beyond the Bible, which I've read and studied extensively, lots of perspectives, but just by the effort that was coming off the pages, the faith and the feeling that went into them, like it's moving me right now. And so that's a great way to apprehend the universe as well. So I guess I try to balance my feelings and emotions with my intellect, because I'm not careful, my intellect kind of takes over and dominates. And so I try to find some balance when I can.
I'm wondering, we have a few minutes left. First of all, thank you, panel, for your contribution. If you have other things you'd like to say, please feel free to do so. But I'm wondering, does anyone out here might have a question for Anil or other panelists you've been dying to ask, either this week or last year when Jim was trying to direct you to do something? Jonathan put a color crayon in your hand. You teach adult coloring book stuff. Could I take that class?
I'm just enough of an art snob that I haven't gotten on the whole adult quick.
Okay, well, I'll reserve my Crayolas till you're ready.
It's more of a paint by number.
Oh, is it?
Beverages, there's a color pencil shortage in the world.
Yes, is that amazing?
I read that adult coloring books are the fastest
They are.
in the last year. It's a 40%. It's an explosion.
It's incredible.
In the world of publishing.
So here's a great example of the liberal arts, right? Because a study is published that says that coloring is as therapeutic as massage,
Yeah.
something like that. The study is published that coloring is as therapeutic as massage for relieving stress. And then you have more people coloring, so that creates demand. So that's economics, right? We just moved from science to economics. That creates demand for coloring books, and then you have artists of various levels who are then moving into the publishing world, publishing books. And now we have, once again, you get back into industry and things like economics. So there's a pencil out of that, out of coloring, and that's all liberal arts.
And that's existentialism. No more
Exactly.
Jack, you had something you wanted to...
Yeah. Most of us up here are professional teachers, and so we're the kind of the people who got this or loved it as students and then wanted to keep doing it in our lives. And Neil, I think you bring a perspective that's different than anyone else on the panel right now. And one of the things I hope to inspire in my students is an intellectual curiosity, and that can be difficult at times because there are so many things vying for their time. And I wonder if you just have some very practical things that you could encourage students to do. There are people who don't imagine they're going to be professors or teachers someday, but they imagine they're going to be entrepreneurs, and even just simple daily practices that.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I think for me, it's what the liberal arts has taught me that I apply in my everyday life is that there are very few obstacles that I can't overcome, and there are some that would require, if I really wanted to understand nuclear physics at a very deep level, well, I'd have to go back to school and have to take a number of courses, and I'd probably have to go to the next degree. And I don't have the time for that, and do I have the passion for it. But what my liberal arts background has taught me, and again, all the disciplines that I studied, and many that I haven't mentioned, and I really also draw from, is that just keep digging, and that eventually the discipline will start yielding to you. And it might not come right away. I mean, you might have to scratch very hard to start to get beneath the surface, but eventually it yields. And I think that that's a combination of being open to new ideas, open to new perspectives, because there's always something to learn, even from people you disagree with, in particular. Arguably, you learn the most from people you disagree with, not from people you agree with. And you learn in unexpected ways. Right? So we're talking about mystery and the combination of raised Catholic. So anytime somebody got stung, the answer was always, it's a mystery. And it was said facetiously, but it was also said meaningfully in many ways. And I think, given that everything is a mystery, approaching it in lots of different ways is certainly possible. And so I'm not a professor like all of you, but I'm a professional liberal arts person. And that's, by that I just mean it in terms of outlook. And so I really think that the curiosity and the hunger for learning is something that all of us can carry into everything we do, into every facet of our lives for the rest of our lives. And it's, for the students here, it's really, this is a great opportunity to practice, right? Because you're kind of in an incubator, a liberal arts incubator. And you give the opportunity, in fact, you're forced to, right? Because people say, why do I have to take all these courses? Well, because they're all connected in very deep and meaningful ways that you really kind of have to explore to realize. I mean, I always, one of the greatest skills for me as a student was, I'm reading Plato in the morning and I'm taking sociology in the afternoon, and I have a psychology course, in the evening, and then I'm reading St. Augustine, and I'm trying to understand my friends who are in pre-med, and they're talking about, before I became a liberal arts person, I was a science person, and so, okay, so what's the meaning of this, this compound, and what you can do with it? And suddenly, it all comes together. All of these things are connected, and I can articulate how they're connected because of all of the education I've received. And so I think this is, to all of you who are here as students, this is the invitation of the liberal arts, is learn as much as you can, keep connecting things, and you get to practice it now, and you get to practice it for the rest of your life as well.
Anil, thank you very much. I think it's about 4 minutes to the hour, is that right? 3 or 4 minutes to the hour. I don't know if any quick question, one more quick question. If not, I would certainly like for us to give Anil thanks for being here all the way. This moment is your last official part. We've got some unofficial thing you have with Anil today, so this is sort of culmination of his time here. We'd love to have Anil come back in the future. It's been a wonderful week, so thank you, Anil. And then I'd also love to thank the panel here. What a wonderful panel, at least 3 of the 4 were. I'll let you figure out which 3. But anyway, thank you very much for bringing your disciplines to bear here. We appreciate that very much. And let's give the panel a